Welcome back to the Lost Info Podcast. As always, it's keeping you awake, Jake. We are down a co-host for the day. We had some scheduling things. I know it's been a while since we came to you. We've had a lot of different kind of things we're trying to figure out. We're trying to get a new internet in here. So we're trying to get a little bit more mainstreamed with the Metronet, the fiber optics. So a lot of technical difficulties, I guess, but we're here to bring you the new topic, new case file. And this one is going to be Stargates, portals, vortexes, wormholes, all of that. The interesting part about this one is there's a lot, you'd think that maybe not so much through history, but there's actually quite a bit more on this topic than you'd think. I mean, the Einstein-Rosen bridge as well. I mean, you see that in the movies, but it's the same kind of concept is, fast tracking you from one place in the universe to the other. I think that there is a breakdown. Before we get into that, though, I wanted to put out a little bit of information for you guys. So we're going to do what's called Studio 84 Store, since this is TLI Studios that does the Lost Info. And it's basically on Route 84 in Illinois. But we're going to do a Studio 84 store that will get a lot of products. That way you can do, we're going to basically be affiliates for a lot of things and some different sponsors of products. But we're going to be able to send you there. It'll be studio84store.com. You can go there. You can either get stuff through Amazon through there or the other products that we're going to be promoting. And then that'd help us out rather than doing, Patreon and things of that nature. So if you want to look into that, we will be building the website. It's up there right now, but it's just very roughed in. We need to get everything figured out, and the person that's building the website needs to do all the details on that. But we'll bring you more information on that. You can go on the show notes below. The Lost Info Podcast, again, on Spotify. YouTube, all those. Hopefully, YouTube, I don't know, they're starting to shadow ban a lot of people. So we might have to look at BitChute or something like that. And when we get the website for the lostinfo.com all the way up and going, then we'll have all of the videos on there as well. But until then, we kind of have to do with what we got. But a lot of people are getting shadow banned for the things that they say. So if you go back on a lot of the past shows that we've talked about a lot of different things. I guess when you get into like the pandemic, stuff like that, that's where you get shadow banned, when you're talking about, the shot, the stick, or whatever else. I don't even want to say the word. But when you do that stuff, that's where a lot of that comes into play. We have had great guests on the show, though. We've had Dr. Pam Popper. We've had all kinds of different people in different categories that have talked about certain things. And we have a couple really good ones coming. Gordo, also from those conspiracy guys, the Irish comedian. He was just our last guest, which was a great episode, really fun. He's a really good guy. He's a gem. Anyway, look back into that one. We will have a lot of other new good guests coming on soon. So with that being said, we're going to jump into case file Stargates, wormholes, vortexes, portals, Einstein-Rosen bridges. So Stargates, they seem to be, to me, I mean, so there's different ways that you can look at it. I think that portals might seem to be more of a natural thing. And so what we come to this conclusion on a lot of the research that's just what's out there is that I think the Stargates or portals basically end up on these high energy points, these ley lines of energy. There's different theories of how that happens. It's the gravitational pull and, the sun's energy and whatnot that have these intersections that create these large, vast amounts of energy. And then, I don't know. So I kind of came to the part that portals might have been the natural sense where maybe these ley lines happen and then on a certain frequency or whatever else that they kind of form. Because there is a lot of talk on I don't know, you can see stuff on TikTok as well about people opening portals with these frequencies and whatever else. I find that hard to believe. But I mean, if you talk to a couple of these researchers that go to Sedona, Arizona, they said they've seen them themselves, and that basically while looking through this point, this high energy point that would be a circle like behind me, not for people on TikTok, but if you go onto the YouTube, we have a Stargate on the green screen. But anyway, like the other ones that are natural, more they're smaller, whatever else. But basically, you're viewing into a different time, a different place, possibly, or whatever. But on the other side of that circle or hole is something other than your current location, let's say. So there's a lot of different things, and we'll get into that. There's some stories about those. But Stargates, I think Stargates maybe were built on the energy ley lines, maybe even where a natural portal was. But I think Stargates are actually the man-made or even extraterrestrial-made portals. So they've actually found the place where the energy is the highest, and then created an area where they've made a gate that can go from one place to another. Maybe in the universe, maybe in the galaxy. I mean, maybe even dimensions. So the Stargates, if you kind of go back, I kind of see it like Stargates might be like a train station. So, if you go to a train station and you're taking the A line to wherever, this Stargate is going to take you straight to that destination and create, an Einstein-Rosen bridge. But that's going to take you from point A to point B. Now, a portal, I think that if those are natural, you just don't know where those could be, what time or place. But those could just maybe appear, or even if they were here where Stargates weren't, the Stargate around it was more of a link to the other location, to the B. So I think that on the other side, it plays just as much role as the one that's on side A as the side B, is that they both have to be linked to each other with some kind of certain energy or directed energy or connection. And so then basically you're taking, the A line to B or whatever, what I mean? So you're going straight from one place to the other, but it's a directed place. And that might be from the creation of the gate itself, directs you how to go. And that seems to be just kind of what I've gathered on what it looks like from Stargates to portals. Now the wormhole, I think, is let's just say the tracks or the rail system between Stargates is the wormhole part of it. And that's the Einstein-Rosen bridge, that's actually the connection. So, you go to the station, Stargate, and then you already has set it for a location. And then once you get on that train, you're going through the wormhole Einstein-Rosen bridge to that location. And then you get into vortexes. I think those are the most natural of everything, not even just in the energy ley lines, but vortexes kind of gets into a lot of different things, starts to cross into a lot of different paths. And I think that mainly that could be a lot of different things. So there's vortexes and tornadoes that create a high energy point. There's vortexes in water. I would say that maybe the Bermuda Triangle has something of a vortex that creates a high energy point, and then maybe opens a portal within that. Because you see a lot of different weird things. Also with the vortexes, for example, with tornadoes, you find wood that has went through metal, and I think that vortex has distorted particles and whatever energy fields to where that's possible. Because otherwise, you're talking about a way less material being able to go through a metal. When they find wood stuck through metal, it's like, how's that possible? But I think that vortex is just like energy lines and everything else that we're talking about, is when that energy point gets so high at the center of a vortex or whatever else, it's basically displacing energy and particles. And so the quantum weird things can happen to where, wood could go through metal, or you could view into another place or a dimension, or you could actually be taken to another place dimension if you went through that. So I think there's a lot that we don't understand, obviously, but I think that this all comes into play. And then obviously, when you look at a lot of the different things from ancient history, they were onto something. What it was, I don't know. And then like we've always said here at Lost Info Podcast, the entertainment. Entertainment and movies have basically said a lot of, different things on how time works and stargates and portals and Einstein-Rosen bridges for Thor to Asgard. And I mean, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the phone booth through the wormholes. I mean, there's all kinds of Interstellar. I mean, there's all different kinds of movies that depict this kind of stuff. And I think that, you know, at some point, I don't know when or on a timeline, but I think we'll definitely get there. We're getting close. But anyway, from the whistleblowers in the military, there's one topic that kind of hits to where I like right now is the topic on the Iraq Stargate. So it was said that, you know, Saddam was, and he definitely believed this too. He believed that he was the reincarnation of a god. And so that in this temple, I forgot where it is. So let me see if I have this where the temple was. But anyway, in the temple that he had, so in 2003, apparently seems to have been another purpose for, instead of oil and the opiates, whatever else, the war that everybody thinks, which I think those were all also a part of it. I mean, in Afghanistan, the opiates, in Iraq, the oil. But when we went over there, there was a large portion of our military that went around that old temple. And then they had said that basically that Saddam had the parts to recreate this Stargate. And it was one of the last active Stargates when it was put back together, is what how the story goes. And then him being that he said he was, you know, rebirth, might have had the memory of the past god that had put it together before. I don't know. But that's kind of how the story goes. And so then, you know, and I heard about this a lot when I was in the past, but I never really put a lot of thought into it because I was thinking, you know, Stargates were kind of far out when I was in high school. And, you know, 2001, we got 9/11, and then it took us into Iraq. And I knew that there was other purposes, but I wasn't putting too much stock into the Stargate thing. But so he believed that he was the reincarnation of Nebuchadnezzar. And so he was going to build back Babylon. And then I guess that was incorporating the Stargate that might have been part of Babylon in the way that the notes go. So with the studies of our first advanced civilization that was known to Mesopotamia, the cradle of life, that was actually that is modern day Iraq. And so that was where the main Stargate was, because it was supposedly where everything kind of came out of. And so, you know, if you look at Mesopotamia, the cradle of life, where, you know, you would have, if there was influence from outsourced, you would want a Stargate there, obviously. And so they say that was one of the biggest ones. And then apparently the elites, they had knew about this. So they were, you know, I mean, all through time, mind you. So this was Germany. This was Nazi Germany, Hitler, Russia, CIA, KGB. They all knew about this Stargate supposedly for a long time. And that leads us to some of the stories in World War II, where basically that Germany was trying to get a hold of this Iraq Stargate as well. And there was a lot of different things that came into play on that as well, which I didn't know until looking into this a little bit. There's not solid links, but there's definitely vague ones that may or may not be true, but they have a little bit of grit, something to bite onto. And so this particular Stargate was linked to the race that inhabited the 10th planet, which we all know of as the Anunnaki's planet, Nibiru. And then so basically they were the ones that kind of seeded mankind. And then, you know, I think that they assumed that this Stargate was built by the Anunnaki, and then that was their way to come back. There is theories that we destroyed it at one time so that we could advance as a race of human beings outside of the slave race that they made us to maybe mine gold or whatever that was said to be at the time. So, and that kind of makes sense. I mean, if you were being forced to mine gold, and that might be why, you know, man has always wanted gold. Like throughout our history, the conquistadors, the Egyptians, Mayans. I mean, everybody has these gold stories, and that just might be ingrained in our DNA because we were, miners of gold for the Anunnaki. It has a little plausibility in that for sure. But then I would say if we wanted to rebel and wanted to do our own thing, that might be, we knew they came through these Stargates, and so we might have destroyed them so that we could, they couldn't come back, and we'd have time to, create our own race on its own, per se. But anyway, that's just one of the theories with the Stargates as far as Iraq. But then it goes into, in that, so during that time, there was Project Stargate, which was through the military in 2003. And these forces, I think it was like, I want to say, I don't know if it was F1 or F something, that was a group that went into this temple. They were split into two supposedly after, and one was Project Stargate and one was Project F1 or whatever. So like the first one was to, probably find Saddam and whatever else and not let anybody get to this. But it seems like this Project Stargate was the group that was going to be to find and recover the pieces of this Stargate so that America could have them, or at least that so we could, I don't think we'd destroy it, but so nobody else could get it. So I think that was why it was split into Project Stargate, which when you start going into it, they even list that in the documents of Project Stargate. So I think that even them saying it kind of indicates that there was more to it than what I gave credit back then when I heard about it. But there were supposedly military people that had said they'd seen it firsthand. They had also said that 100% that they were sent there on their mission was to go in and get Stargate and either stop it from being opened or contain the pieces that create it. So, and I'm not sure on that, but it definitely seems as if there's something to that. Now, and there's another thing I just came across. I didn't actually write this down, but I was listening to a guy the other day that had talked about the Freemasonry, and supposedly there is this whole entire understanding the Freemasons, like, so there's 32 degrees, and then there's that 33-degree Mason, and then that 33-degree Mason, like, is that step beyond this world. So there's 32 degrees in the world. But then basically that 33-degree is the North Pole or the Magic Mountain or whatever they call, which may be a portal to another higher realm. But I guess the elites all knew about this, the Freemasonry, and the ones at the top knew about this other place. If you look at their crest, their little symbol with the checkerboard floor, they have a ladder leading up to the middle of nowhere. And then if you go to the sun is, I believe, on the left. I'm not sure if the sun's on the left or right, and the moon's on the other. And then above it is a star that has an opening with the all-seeing eye and whatever else. And I'm thinking that meant from another dimension and maybe portals as well. So if you look into that, it kind of gets weird. But I was just kind of briefly going over that the other night and heard somebody talking about it, and I thought it kind of just went into this Stargates and portals. But then basically, we get into some of the locations, and there's Stargate locations all over the world still to this day, or portals. Supposedly there's a former Navy SEAL that said he walked through one that was on a base in Alaska. I think, I don't remember where he said it in Alaska, but then it went to Hawaii right outside of Pearl Harbor on a base. But he had said it looked just like it does in the back here, which is basically a water type covering or whatever that looks like you're walking into a swimming pool that's vertical, basically. But he said as soon as you walk through that blue substance, and there is a lot of indications that there's a blue light or blue of some sort in a lot of these Stargates and portals. But he said, as soon as you walk through there, it doesn't take any time. You're not going through wormholes like the portals that are on Earth. You're literally from point A to point B instantly. So your next step is in Hawaii from Alaska is what he had said. And that was his claim, that he knew of a lot of other bases, but that one he personally went through himself. But he had also said that there was a few in Argentina, Australia, a couple in the Middle East, a couple in Peru, Arizona, Alberta, Canada, Egypt, Bermuda Triangle, and definitely Antarctica. And there's even more detailed ones in those places. I guess there was a few in Peru, and the one is the Gate of the Gods, and that's right outside of Lake Titicaca. And that one is supposedly one of the bigger ones. And there's a story about that one as well. I couldn't find it again, but I had read that the guy had talked to Aborigines from that location, and he basically had asked them for help on how the Stargates worked and the information that he had, and they gave him a chant, and they said that in times in the past this has worked. And the guy had made this chant, I guess slept there for days or whatever, right in front doing this chant. And eventually it opened up, and that he had went through there, went into a all white place with a being that had asked him, how'd you get this information to get here? Or how'd you do this and whatever else? And then he asked a few questions, and I couldn't find the story, but then he was sent back, and that was basically his account of going through a Stargate at the time. We have a lot of different things with portals and Stargates and whatever else as well. I mean, if you go back to our CERN episode, we were talking about the different kind of things that they possibly might be doing at CERN. And one is, smashing particles, the particle accelerator, of course. But the other one was that they might be trying to open rifts in dimensions, which is portals. And they even came out recently and said that they were wanting to be able to peer into other dimensions through that technology. Now, they've been closed for like 3 years, and I guess they are firing back up the Hadron Collider. So I don't know. I think there might be some things to come in the near future. And if we get some kind of disclosure here, like I think in the next few years, maybe 10 or whatever, possibly by 2030, I think that maybe it'll be known that we can open portals and view in, especially if we get past the point of just understanding that they are there and that there is extraterrestrials that can open or close them and whatever else. I mean, even in Skinwalker Ranch, another topic that we did in the past. Skinwalker Ranch also had what they had said was a portal where a craft had flown out of it, and that was the lady that lived in there, lived on that property in 1980s. She had said and the son had said that they saw something of a hole open in the sky, and then crafts had came out, or balls of light, or whatever she had said. So again, it seems to be portals of dimensions, and I think that there is a difference between stargates through the universe in the physical world, and then portals going back in from dimensions, which I think is just energy transfer, not as much as the physical realm of things. So maybe that's why she saw a ball of light and whatever else, because there's more energy coming from another dimension, which I think that that's possible. I mean, Aleister Crowley had talked about opening different things and bringing things in from other places, and that was through sex magic. So he's talking about the height of ejaculation multiple times in some of his writings that creates such an energy field that, again, something seems to spring out of those mass energy fields. And again, I mean, all these different stargates around the world, even the old map that I think is out there, it's called like a UP2 map or something. And that was supposedly from the military. All those end up landing on energy ley lines as well. So there's definitely something with enough energy can probably open these portals, and then without, I don't know that you can. So, you have to basically on yourself kind of determine whether you think that they're real or not, I guess, is where you start. But then if you look into a lot of these, located under an ancient temple, Ziggurat was the one in Iraq, the Temple of Ziggurat. And then that was the time of Nebuchadnezzar. And then so when Saddam thought he was the reincarnation, then I mean, that's kind of weird that he'd want to rebuild this Stargate that supposedly was there at the time. Now, I don't know if he was going to build it back for an invasion, to bring back his kind and take over, or, there's a lot of things that he had said it was for mankind to do the right thing, to bring maybe back to get rid of the elite we have now. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you could look at that. Not really sure where he was going to go. He was kind of crazy, but we also, America made him out to be crazy. So I mean, unless you really talk to some of these leaders, like right now we're going through the same thing with Putin. Everybody's making him out to be this, he's snapped and he went crazy and he's gonna, try to take over the world and start World War III. I really don't see Putin as that guy. I think he's an asshole. I think he's a bad guy. But just like any other leader, he sees a direction of things going, and there's other things that we're not seeing behind the curtain that, he's just taking his stance. And, yeah, he probably wants Ukraine for their resources, but is that because we want Ukraine for their resources or other countries? I think that the same thing happened with China and in Afghanistan. We pulled Afghanistan for a reason. And I think it was because they had took over those lithium mines and their resources and whatever else. And there was some kind of agreement. And then we don't want to let Russia do the same. And usually it's because we have our own agendas or we want those resources as well. Hence a lot of the wars that we've had for opiates, for oil, things like that. We always usually have an agenda behind things too. So, I mean, until you see the full story, we just don't know much. And we can only, it's the lost info and essential lost information is where you get the full story and the reason why things are done. And we kind of have to get to a point where all this disclosure gets brought out, because all the cover-ups, hidden things, elites, these groups, Illuminatis and Jesuits and whatever else, if we continue to let this happen, then we'll just continue to be in the absolute dark. And then we have to try to share information like this on a podcast and whatever else in order for people to see, some truths, just so that they can look it up themselves. And again, I encourage everybody to search that for themselves, because this does become, a clusterfuck of things if we don't start figuring some of the stuff out. And I mean, when I say start, I mean, like, we really got to catch up, because we're at the point, if this is their last stages to one world order or whatever else, these events and crazy things have happened. Well, we gotta wake the fuck up. And then I think it's Agrathians or whatever else. I think it's the Agrathians, located under Mount Shasta, and that's their capital. There's supposedly an entrance and a portal to, I think, the inner Earth, where their base is. And they say that there's also portals around that town, around that mountain of Mount Shasta. So that was another interesting thing. But there's a lot of stories where people like going through the woods, and then, they end up in a different place in a different time, or, a lot of disappearances where people never came back. And I think that those could be, and there's even places, I think, in Washington right now where you can go, and it's a tourist attraction where these energy things make things kind of backwards, like things can roll uphill and whatever else. So it's not out of the realms of even craziness. It's just like, if we could learn how to harness that technology, then I think that there's a good possibility that, we could do a lot of crazy things and go to different places and use them for travel, which I think they were on more advanced civilizations that had took that information and then used it and kind of did whatever they do, and made Stargates and transportation systems. So, I mean, even if you think about extraterrestrials and, in the sense of these beings can travel from wherever in the galaxy or the universe to get here, it'd be pretty stupid if you're that advanced to travel with propulsion and over time, because you're going to lose a lot of time before you get there, if time even matters to them. But I mean, even if you're just, wasting all that in the ship on the, propulsion system to get here, why wouldn't you just figure out the technology in order to just, Einstein Rosenbridge it, bam, from one place to another in seconds? And then that would be a way better way to travel throughout the cosmos. So that makes sense that they would do that in the first place. It also makes sense if they had anything to do with our past that they would make an entrance that was already established to where they knew exactly where they're going to show up when they got there. So that part to me just seems kind of that's what you would do if you were more advanced. Because obviously there's weird stuff in our energy and our technology and everything else, but if you could learn how to harness it, which maybe that's what CERN's trying to do, is that you can create your own bus stations wherever you want. But anyway, so we talked about the tornado, and it kind of changes matter, and I assume the energy and matter kind of get displaced and do different things. There's a story of a man. Yeah, we went over that one to you. So anyway, I'm going to kind of shorten this one up since I didn't have a co-host. I like the input. This one's kind of different. When you're just talking to the camera without any kind of discussion like we usually have. I mean, I have Kane over here, but he doesn't really talk back much. So it's kind of just talking at you. We would like you to be a part of this. We're actually going to get a phone number here soon in the studio to where you guys can call in. We can be a part of the whole discussion. But if you want for now, it's the lostinfopodcast@gmail.com. You can kind of call us in or email us in, talk about things that you might want to talk about, or we can, if it's something that maybe you guys have, we could patch you in on a different phone for now until we get a studio phone. So those are all different options. I think I'm just going to pass right on most of this stuff like we usually do, because like I said, kind of just the last of everything, but we're going to go straight to the smoke and joke section. And so with that, get out your bongs, blunts, bowls, whatever it may be. Imaginary ones if you don't smoke. We're going to have a smoke and joke section. All right. So I'm not sure why wormholes are so interesting. I saw one this morning and then I threw away the apple. Starting out loud. I know. It's fun. You guys can't hear the sound effects on TikTok, but we might have to figure out a way we can do that. All right. What do you call a cute portal? Adorable. And so, I looked into a lot of things and I didn't really believe when they told me that the government had actually opened a portal to another dimension while trying to spy on the Russians. But I guess stranger things have happened. That one wasn't too bad, actually, either. Shout out to the Stranger Things. It's a good show. It's fun. And speaking on portals on that, too, as well. I mean, that also, the Montauk Project was on that. I should have had that written down in this whole episode as well. We might have to do a part 2. This one was kind of rushed through. But the Montauk Project was also about a guy that they put in a chair, created a lot of energy to his brain, and then they manifested his thoughts into portals so that they could go to Mars and do things weird. The whole story is pretty weird, but there was also a lot about it that that was why Stranger Things had, I guess, kind of structured their show around some of that, and that was the portals to the underworld and whatever else. Again, there's just a lot of weird things that have happened in this world, and the more information that we get and the more information that we pass, I think that we'll see that a lot of these things intersect, and I guess that energy ley lines maybe where they intersect. All right. So living in the Midwest, the temperature can go from -30 and then in a few days to 75. I guess that's just a stupid bipolar vortex. That was a little rough. Wasn't as good as this. What do you call it when you get stuck in a brainstorm feedback loop? A cerebral vortex. I get myself one. Usually we have the co-host grade on the jokes, but that one was pretty bad. I always said I would never go walking into a dark portal that went into the middle of the earth, but eventually I caved. So those are our joke section on that. I know we kind of flew through this topic. It's not like we don't usually do it like this normally. We're actually going to do another thing on TikTok as well. So when we do our shows, and if you want to go to TikTok, the Lost Info Podcast on there, we're actually going to do a couple different things that interact with guests more. And we're going to do basically like a ritual, but we're going to set it up kind of like a ritual that, you know, just like the bad guys use it, we're going to actually use the power of intention for people that are on the TikTok and whatever else that want to maybe change their life and things that they want to pray for or send energy and everybody's thoughts to. So we're going to do some kind of ritual thing. But that's yet to come. We have to work on that. We got to do a couple things. We got to get a lot of things in order. Got to get a better internet in here for sure. We need to get the scheduling with the co-hosts a little bit better too. So we still have a lot to work on, but we're going to get there. And appreciate you guys, all the stuff that you guys have stuck with us and everything else. We've went through a lot of growing in this last couple months. Moved into the new studio, a lot of scheduling conflicts, a lot of other things. So we're trying to iron it all out for you. We all have, you know, multiple jobs too. So like I said, if you want to help us out where we could obviously focus more energy onto the podcast, it'll be the Studio84store.com, and that will also be linked to thelostinfo.com, and that'll be on there as well. And you can just go there, buy stuff through Amazon, do whatever you got to do, and then we can all help each other out. We can get this power of intention ritual thing going on TikTok, and then we can also get a lot more shows out to you and better guests. The hard thing is I don't know how we're going to do this on TikTok with the guest yet, because it'll be hard to see the guest because we have them in front of us on a monitor. But we're going to figure out a way to do that yet. But this is our first time live on TikTok. Thank you guys for just chiming in for the first one. Obviously, this isn't really how the show goes. Don't have the other co-hosts. We kind of flew through the topic. But we do appreciate everybody listening, everybody that helps us out. We will continue to grow. We will continue to do things. I just wanted to get this one out there for you guys because it's been a little bit on pause. Everybody's got a little bit busy in their lives, and I think everybody out there can understand that. So with that being said, we will bring more to you, and, you know, together, the fellow seekers of knowledge and finders of information. This is the Lost Info, and this is Keeping You Awake, Jake. We are going to probably just be done for this one today. This is our first live on TikTok, like I said, so we're kind of focusing on that screen, and then trying to limit, I guess, the cutting and the editing that will go into it for when we get going on our actual structure. So again, appreciate you guys. And we'll see you on the next one. Peace.